Hey everybody, it's Tucker from BattleHawk Armory again, and today we are out with the new highly anticipated Staccato 4.5. Most of you guys are familiar with the Staccato HD 4. This is the latest offering for Staccato. It's the HD 4.5. We've been looking forward to it for a long time. Today, to tell us a little bit about it, we have Mason from Staccato.
Thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it. Yeah, so obviously we got the HD, the P4 in front of us, as well as the newly coming to release here, the P4.5. And so right off the get-go, visually they look, very similar. Everyone's going to ask right away, well, what are the differences? Well, I'll break them down for you real quick. So first off, we can see slide length between the two guns is dang near identical. The big difference here and the departure that we took for the 4.5 versus the 4 is that the 4.5 is actually running a sight block. And so what that sight block is and what it does, the sight block is essentially just a chunk of steel that's built into the barrel. It's milled out of the same piece of stainless. And so you cannot detach it, you cannot unthread it. It's not press fit on, it's literally machined out of the same piece. What that does for us is it adds non-reciprocating weights to the very front end of the gun. So essentially what it'll do in practice is help tame a little bit of that recoil that you feel. We were also able to move the front sight on top of the sight block. And so you can see the slide real clean there. Nothing gets snagged up on, hung up on. Aside from that, both of these are a good example here. These are both the preferred model of guns, the preferred P4 and the preferred P4.5. Some of the differences between the guns: with the 4.5, you'll get the mag well included in with the purchase of the gun. Both guns will come with 3 magazines, and they'll both sport the DLC, the black barrels, right? So you shot just one quick mag through it. What'd you think so far?
Seemed quite a bit softer shooting. Very impressed. As always, one of the big features for the HD series period is going to be the Series 80 trigger. I think Staccato did a great job blending that. I don't feel it at all in the trigger pull. Now, are these going to be the same as the 4, offered in 3 different lines?
Yes, sir. The 4.5 will come out as a base gun, a preferred gun, and a premium gun. The one big difference with the 4.5 lineup versus the P4 lineup, the base P4.5 will actually have a DLC barrel as well. So that's a little different than the base model P4. And part of that is just having to do with the sight block, right? Would we keep that black with the silver barrel? It's like, okay, let's just DLC it all, and then we'll make that the base gun. So base gun, you'll get the DLC barrel, you'll get blacked out Ameriglow sights, you'll get no magazine well, and then you'll get 2 of the 18 round Mech-R mags. The preferred gun, you'll get the DLC barrel, you'll get the Trigicon night sights, you'll get 3 magazines from Mech-R there, and then you'll get the mag well included. And then the premium model, you'll get all the same things mentioned on the preferred, except add in the X serrations and an additional magazine. So that's the breakdown for you. A lot of people think it's strictly for the LE market, right? That said, we've had a lot of requests on the consumer side to, bring a gun to the market that feeds on cheaper, more readily available magazines. At the end of the day, spending $70, $80, $90 a piece on magazines, that can be a tough pill to swallow, even if you got the change for it, right? But being able to load up on either Mech-R or Glock OEM factory magazines, that's a bit easier to do, especially if you're adding extensions into the mix and whatnot. Both of these P4 and the 4.5 are going to be running what we call the host optic mounting system. And what's new about that, while there is still a spacer plate, specifically for these optics here, the RMR HDs, it is the actual RMR HD screws that are going through the optic body, through the spacer plate, and into the slide, and that is what's securing the optic to the slide. So overall, it'll be a little bit more robust than stacking a plate onto a gun and then stacking an optic back onto that plate, versus now we just kind of have the single point of attachment. That said as well, the irons are now on their own set of system, right? So they're hard mounted to the gun, the optics hard mounted to the gun and they're separated. So that way, if you do have an iron failure, you're still going to have a hard mounted optic, or vice versa.
And real quick, Mason, we were talking about it earlier. So you do have a little bit longer slide and a fixed sight block. I just wanted to ask, how much weight did we add to the firearm overall?
So overall, the P4.5 comes in at 34 ounces unloaded, whereas the P4 comes in at 32 ounces unloaded. Not a big difference, but that said, it's all going to be right at the end of the muzzle.
A lot of fun looking at it. Let's take take it out to the range, put it through its paces.
Absolutely.
All right, guys, so we just finished up on the range, probably 700 rounds through mostly the 4.5, a little bit of the 4-inch just to compare. Got to be honest, I'd be hard pressed to pick one over the other.
It's tough. You know, the P4 versus the 4.5, that's going to be the #1 question, right? What were your thoughts as far as recoil impulse on the 4 versus the 4.5 inch?
So on the 4.5, I definitely felt a softer slide return. I did like that quite a bit, but I felt almost like I got a better return to zero on the 4-inch.
Sure, yeah. I think a little bit, not snappier is not the right word, but more of a stern recoil impulse on the P4. It kind of assisted it a little bit for that return to zero. But yeah, that 4.5, it does shoot very, very soft.
I do like the 4.5 quite a bit. I very much do like the mag well that's included with it. I prefer that on just about every pistol I have. It did have a very soft return to zero, like you said. The 2 ounces, I could not feel at all. They feel very similar to me in the hand. So
Yep.
I think if you're a 4.5 guy or you're a 4-inch guy, either way, it's a win.
I think that's a good way to capitalize on it. So, yeah.
And again, we've had a lot of questions about the iron sights and why you guys placed them in front of the optic on these pistols. Maybe you can tell us a little about that.
Yeah, so it's for a few different reasons, right? Putting them in front, you can essentially make them as high as you want, and you're not going to block any usable window of the actual optic itself. Whereas if you have them to the rear and they're high enough, say like a lower third co-witness
Right.
or a full co-witness, you're blocking out a lot of that usable window of the actual optic itself. So the other thing is getting that optic as far back away from the ejection port as possible to prevent any sort of chamber overhang, right?
Yeah,
You
we've
see,
seen that.
yep. And it also allows it to act as a little bit of a guard too. If you do have to do single hand manipulations on the gun, at least you have a little bit of protection here from that rear sight now being in front of the optic. The other thing I'd like to touch on is you can see we have RMR HDs mounted up to both of these guns, right? So we actually have 2 sets of RMR screw patterns on the slide. We have this rear bias for the RMR HD and the SRO, which allows us to mount it further rearward on the slide. That's basically flush with the rear of the slide there. And then we have a forward mounted section for traditional RMR footprint optics like your RMRs, your 507 whatever series, and any other clones. We have the RMR HD SRO plates. We have an RMR and other clone plates. We have a Delta Point plate, and we have the Aimpoint Acro plate. So that's the current 4 that we're running with, and I'm sure down the road we'll expand that.
Drop safe pistol, a good 4.5 trigger, extremely reliable. If a 2011 style trigger is what you're after, great duty carry. If you like the Glock magazine, I think they're winners. And that wraps it up. So thanks for watching today, and we'll see you guys next time.